What up, roomies? Tonight on Neighbors, we're gonna be diving into what it really takes to become an elite. Everybody sees the Olympics, the medals, the lights, the national pride, the perfect performance, but nobody ever sees the years of sacrifice, the mental pressure, the identity crisis after competition, the loneliness of chasing greatness, and the terrifying question athletes face when the dream ends: Who am I now? Tonight's guest knows this journey firsthand. And welcome back to Neighbors, where every story has scars behind the success. Tonight we're sitting down with Imre Lengyel, a two-time Olympic diver, former Cirque du Soleil performer, psychology graduate, elite performance coach, adventurer, and someone who has spent his entire life operating at an extremely high level. For this is not just about sports. This episode is about identity, reinvention, pressure, discipline, purpose, and what happens after the dream. Everybody, welcome, Aaron. How you doing, bro?
How you doing? Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. And it's an honor to have you on here. You've done things that, you know, 99.9% of the world dreams about doing, you know what I mean, at one point in their lives. And, this is something that nobody really has really spoken about, but like the journey to get there, to be the Olympics, to be in that, in that spotlight. Like it must have been crazy. That must have been a crazy feeling when you were doing it back in, I believe it was in 96 and in 2000, correct?
Yes, 1996 Atlanta and 2000 Sydney.
So like let's dive into it. Let's dive into it. So like how was the process like actually getting into the Olympics and performing at the Olympics?
Well, usually the process starts years before the actual Olympic Games when you're competing. I would say the average time for an Olympic athlete to make it to the Olympic level or to the Olympic Games is somewhere around 10 years, a decade. My career was a little bit different. I started in the sport of gymnastics. So for the first 10 years, I was an Olympic hopeful in a different sport. But then a bad injury put an end to that career. And after a little break, a short break, I accidentally ended up in a diving pool, and I was kind of discovered by a coach. I was just playing around from the pool deck with a friend, and one of the coaches saw me. And after 10 years of gymnastics, obviously, he saw a little bit of talent in me just
Yeah.
by doing flips from the side. So he approached me. He kind of offered an opportunity to start a different sport, diving, somewhat related to gymnastics. So there
Yeah.
was a huge amount of skill transfer there at an early age, which kind of continued throughout my life in later phases. But that was the beginning of it all, pretty much, for the
I,
diving.
I feel you. And how was that transition going from like gymnastics to diving?
Uh, Quite a few people make that transition, but not a lot of them excel in their second sport. Usually, what happens when a gymnast gets too tired to work out, or the career is nearing to an end, they might switch to diving, but usually they don't make it to a high level, uh, uh,
I got
competitor.
I got
So,
that on that. And like how was the process like? Because I would believe you're about my age, a little bit older than I am. I'm about 37 right now,
mm.
right? Because you look like a strapping young man.
Say it again. I didn't understand.
I said, like, how was that process? Like, how long did it take from like you like starting your training to actually being in the games? Like, because I
Mhm.
believe you said that that process takes about 10 years. So like, how were you discovered, and like, how did you like eventually get there?
So what happened with me, I started diving at age 16 after 10 years of gymnastics.
Okay.
So some of those skill set that I acquired during my gymnastics career were very much useful in diving, in the sport of diving, the flipping, the twisting. So I was familiar with doing doubles and triples and double twists and triple twists. I learned it in gymnastics. So the biggest part was for me to transfer everything to a little bit of a different environment. You're falling at a very high speed, so that kind of changes the movement around. So there was a few elements that I was not used to. The height was one of them,
Yeah.
and the 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 somersaults we're a little bit different because in gymnastics, usually you do full somersaults, either a single flip, a double flip, or a triple flip.
Yeah.
And in diving, 99% of the time, you land on your head. So you're doing one and a half, two and a half, three and a half. And visually and, body feeling wise, that's a completely different thing. So now I see throughout my coaching career, I've seen a lot of transitions, people from gymnastics to diving and just different disciplines. People move around, and I
Yeah.
see that that's a big obstacle for a gymnast to become a diver, to understand how to land on his head as opposed to land on his feet.
No, I get that, and especially the fact that since you don't have that body of water or any other thing like preventing you from getting seriously harmed in gymnastics, you always want to land on your feet and make sure you're correct, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So like when you started like training from gymnastics, was like the Olympics the goal, or were you just in gymnastics because you like love the sport?
Mhm. Well, where are we now? 2026,
Yeah,
United States of America. It's a completely different setup and concept about sport, achievement, Olympic Games. Back in my time, I was born in 77. So, I was doing my sport career during the 80s and the 90s mostly.
yeah,
That was a completely different perspective. It wasn't supposed to be fun at all. It was hardcore performance. That's what it was. So people were pushed to their limits pretty much. The
yeah.
main concept of any given sport in my country at the time was to push everybody as far as you can, and whoever makes it, whoever survives, will be the best. And
Okay.
it worked, on a large scale. Obviously, it works. My nation produced unbelievable sport results. We're a really small country. We had 15 million, 10 million, 15 million people only. And we always end up top 10, top 5 at the
That is
Olympics
true.
medal
Uh,
count. So we're very, very strong in terms of sport. So I went through not only gymnastics and diving in that sense, but an entire sport nation was behind me, supporting my career without me really understanding that was happening at the time. But later on, you realize what happened. So my schooling was, I would say, quite strong.
okay, okay. And like, do you take any of the like comparing how you were trained versus like how you're training your athletes now, right? Are you like kind of like a lot more gentler with them? Like you have like more rest time, or like do you kind of like push them to the limits without like breaking
Yes, it's a
them?
balance. You got to find the right balance. But, most of my jobs and professional uh, things in my life were at a high level. And usually, high level performances require extreme amount of
Yeah,
training or extreme type of training. So kind of human rules are a little bit overwritten. Like sometimes you're going into the unhealthy territory that it's not good for you, but that's what it's gonna take to win. So people take that risk. They put their health on the line every day.
and like what does that show you about like the human condition and like the extremes a person's willing to go to achieve a goal? Like I've seen people like do extraordinary things under the right circumstances that they would never do in their life, without training and without nothing. Now that you're training these elite people, right? Do you see that you could kind of like push them harder than you would push an average person?
Yes, I would say yes, because they can be pushed harder. An average person gives up after a while when it's time to kind of step up the game and, let's say, suffer on a physical
Yeah,
training. Then most people don't are not willing to take that pain. After a while, it gets too much. They give up. They change the goal. They don't want to achieve it anymore because they realize that, yeah, maybe it's not for me. So in the realm or the world of high performance, those rules don't really count. Nobody cares if you want it or not. The only thing that matters is the end result. Nobody's going to ask you really if you were happy during the preparation or not, or nobody cares. They just, especially in the entertainment industry, people want to buy a ticket, go out, have a drink, eat some popcorn, and watch something amazing. They don't care if the performer has a really rough time doing that thing that night. That doesn't belong to them. There's a line between what you're giving out to the audience and what you do in order to be able to give that out.
Now I
I hope
get
that
that,
makes
and I do see that a lot in like especially in entertainment, and I would say that also our society is kind of like built that way in 2026, where you're not really seeing the work ethic that goes into these performances. You're just seeing the end result, you know. So us, the people behind the screen or the ticket holders are like, wow, these people are amazing, but yet again, we don't see the sprained ankles, the hamstring pulls, and all those good things, all those bad things that these athletes go through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. There's a dark side to everything, elite
Yeah,
sports and elite entertainment. They are no exceptions. They kind of take a toll on people. It's a very physical job if you're an elite athlete or an elite performer. So it beats you up, definitely.
I get that. So like, can, can you take us back to like when you were at the games? Like, how did it feel? How was that experience? Like, being called into the arena and they're calling your name out and you're ready to like do your dive and all that. Like, how was that? What did you feel when that was going down?
Yeah, there were a few things about making it to the Olympics that changed in my life. One thing was instantly you get some sort of recognition for being an Olympian, and before I wasn't used to that, but throughout the years I kind of started to understand what it really means to people and
Yeah,
society, and what you represent as an Olympian. So I try to act accordingly, obviously, but at the time that was the first sign that I noticed. I'm like, that's crazy. People want to shake my hand and congratulate me. So you get respect, and which is a tricky thing because you really start believing like, oh my God, I am somebody. But
yeah,
then you look around yourself and you see that, the 10 person that's standing next to you are Olympians as well. And some of them are better Olympians than you are, they win medals. And so
yeah,
it's a humbling environment to be in. It constantly gets positivity for it. They praise you, so you kind of get like walking on clouds a little bit, like,
yeah,
oh, I'm a little bit of a star kind of feeling. But at the same time, the reality always comes back, and it
yeah.
turns
Because
more into responsibility than something that you enjoy, and the responsibility that comes with it, you start enjoying that, teaching all the lessons that you went through and you learned, teaching it to throughout your work, in your coaching work.
now I get that, and I would think that it would be a dope experience because of the fact that you're at this elite level, and then you have like people of all ages, people who are older than you, your age, younger. They're looking up to you like, yo, wow, like if this guy could do it, right? That he comes from X, Y, and Z. Maybe I could do it too. And it's like you're like this point of inspiration. Like, how did that make you feel?
Very good. You take on a little bit of a role model. You don't have a choice. You are one as an Olympian, at least in the athlete community or the diving community, let's say. You go to a swimming pool, to a youth competition, then those kids find out you're an Olympian. That means something. So they hungry for it. They want to hear from you. They want to coached by you, and they want to be part of the Olympic spirit, a little bit. So so anywhere I go, pretty much anywhere I teach, I share those values, and that's pretty much the most I can do. Everything that I got from being at that level, uh, the last few years I've been spending in putting it back into the sport.
And that's a beautiful thing. Like, so when you were coming up, was there anybody who really inspired you to like keep going and not quit, or like, did you have any moments in your training where you're like, maybe this isn't for me?
Absolutely, everybody does. There are so many times when you're either forced to take a break, you get injured, and you're dealing with personal issues. There's the fear issue there for every diver. Sometimes they call it the twisties, which means
Yeah,
any dive you start twisting in it, and you get lost in the air, and then you crash all the time. So So yeah, there's a mental game associated with specifically diving. Every sport at this level is a mind game for sure, but diving is such a mind game. That's all it is, really. The physical aspects of it. If you look at the Olympic Games, let's say the 12 finalists at the Olympics, all of them, no exception, are in the best shape of their life. That's it.
Yeah.
It comes down to this because you only have 6 dives to do. You can repeat any of that, so it's a mental game. How well can you perform when it's time to perform?
And you mentioned something called the twisties. What's that exactly? Like, I know you were explaining that it's when you're kind of like off your game a little bit, and you're constantly like not controlling your body correctly. If I'm on the right path.
Yes,
So
it's kind of like when you're walking on the street and there are like cobblestones and lines, and on
yeah,
purpose, kind of unconsciously, you avoiding the lines, you stepping only on
yeah,
the stones. Every person done that before.
yeah,
So it's very similar. Unconsciously, you let's say you want to do just a back double flip, but halfway through
yeah,
the double, after one flip, all of a sudden you start going this direction, like if it was a twisting dive, and that just throws your orientation off completely. So you don't know where you are in the air. Very scary feeling. Even it just happens one time. Let's say on the 10-meter dive, you get lost
yeah.
and you crash. That's going to set you back big time. It's going to take, weeks to get over that. The fear. The next time when you have to do the same dive, definitely your heart's going to be beating. So,
Now I get that. Have you seen like anybody like burn out because of the fact that they couldn't get over their twisties or like spatial disorientation?
yes, yes. You see all of these people finish careers because of these issues, but I would say generally speaking, some time off helps. That's usually the solution. People take a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off, cancel all the upcoming competitions if they have the chance, do something different, get their brain out of this whole twisties thing, come back, start from the basics, starts with easy. It's a nervous system thing, pretty much. So what you do is you step back, you reset for a second, you come back, and you relearn. You reteach the nervous system what he already knows. He just went a little bit zzz, zzz.
I got you on that. So like, would it be like a case of like when you are getting the twisties? Would it be like a case of like burnt outness? Like you just need some time to like kind of like just kind of have like a soft reset and just like kind of chill out for a second.
Absolutely, absolutely. The difference between elite sports and elite entertainment would be exactly what you just mentioned. Burning out is way more common in entertainment because in elite sports, you're peaking throughout the year. You have maybe 2, 3 main competitions in a year, and then for the rest of the season you're not training too hard. Sometimes you're specifically training on certain things, so you have easier times during an athletic career. In entertainment, there's no such thing as season. January 1st it starts, December 31st it finishes. So there is no break there, really. You get some time off here and there, but generally speaking, you're working throughout the whole year. It's kind of like if you had a competition or a game, a football or a basketball game every single night, or maybe two, because one performance is an hour and a half. So playing two basketball games a night, 5 days in a row, that was going to
That's
take a toll on people,
yeah, that,
Uh,
that's a
the
lot.
entertainment industry doesn't care for that. The entertainment industry doesn't have that kind of human rule, like we're not gonna push athletes to their limit. We're not gonna let anyone go out there and burn out, as you call it, or hurt himself. The
Yeah.
entertainment industry works a little bit differently. That's a constantly moving. Just got to be careful how you're getting on, when you're getting off. It's a different setup.
No, I got that, and especially when you compare the two. When it comes to entertainment and sports, I guess people are handled differently because in sports, like you see, especially in basketball, oh, this person has a pulled hamstring, so they're off for 2 weeks to recover.
Yes,
When in entertainment, is like the show must go on no matter what the
yes, yes.
circumstances are because you have people who pay to come see this.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and it is not built like a sports team where you have a backup to a backup to a backup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's harder to replace an entertainment person, let's say, than an athlete. But
Mhm.
it's also different because you have superstar athletes that you can't replace. You know, if they
Yeah,
go out, it's such a loss. There are similar characters in a circus world and entertainment, let's say, that are almost irreplaceable. But at the end of the day, nobody's irreplaceable. You know, that's one rule that you learn very, very fast. You see people come and go. You see people get fired and get rehired. So it's a way more fluctuant business than the world of sport. There's a lot different rules and different realities.
I got you on that. So, what would you say would be the difference between like an elite athlete and somebody who's like naturally talented?
An elite athlete and someone who's naturally talented.
Yeah,
Uh, I would say a lot of elite athletes, most elite athletes are naturally talented,
yeah,
especially in, high performance sports and at that level, because you need talent. It's very, very hard to not have the talent. Yes, they say hard work beats talent. I agree with that as well. Without hard work, you're probably not gonna get too far. But I also believe that without talent, you're not gonna get too far either. And I also experienced that talent is not only physical. Absolutely not. You've seen people that have the build, have the physique, that they could be the best in the world, whatever they want to do.
yeah,
Such that given gift they have, that superhumans, yet they haven't really excelled that far because the mental game aspect of it is not uh, following up with the physical reality of it. So
I got you. And how important is it to have like the right mental state when you're like doing these performances or you're competing?
very important. As I mentioned, diving is a precision sport.
Yeah,
So the mental game is, I would say, probably 80% of it. Everybody does the physical prep. Let's say if take the mental game out, those 12 finalists at the Olympic Games, everybody do their best. It's a tie. Everybody's doing the same hardest dives in the world to a perfect execution.
I got you.
Without the mental game. They know how to do it. But when it comes into that moment, you have to do it now. Muscles start shaking a little bit. Adrenaline starts pumping a little bit. You generate more power. You over rotate, or you get a little, maybe you know about this yourself and you on purpose generate a little less power, but you overdo it and you end up short. So there's so much happens to it. I'll be honest with you. Uh, a good state, a good level to be in during a competition is when you're not really thinking too much. It's more of a feeling than a thinking process. You don't need to reason too much. Mostly letting the body do what it knows exactly what to do. If you start thinking about medals and winning and the party after, then you're not there. You're not there. You're
Yeah.
somewhere else in your head. That's when you're gonna overdo it, not enough to it. So you're gonna mess up the power, the speed. No, stay in your body. Focus on your body. That's pretty much the main goal of concentration in a physical sport.
No, I got that on that. So it's like it's always good to be present at the moment. So that
Yeah,
way you're kind of more relaxed and you could like perform at your peak instead of like overthinking it or being kind of nervous. Because I noticed that even like even when you're entertaining, like when you have those nerves running, you kind of like make small mistakes that you normally wouldn't make.
absolutely.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I see this personally when I go up to DJ and whatever. Like if
Mhm.
I'm really nervous about like the event or the venue that I'm at, I'll notice that I'll make smaller mistakes that I never really make. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I just need to like step back and kind of like, woosah a little bit and then like approach it again. So like, I guess it would be the same thing for when you're competing athletically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the risk factor, I also learned that, as a gymnast, you're doing risky things. You think
Yeah,
things in the air, that you can get hurt. Diving, very similar. You can get hurt. Even from 10 meter, you land on your belly or your back, you definitely. I've seen people being pulled out from the water because they went unconscious. So it can beat you up, the water, especially if you go higher than that. In show diving is usually around 20 meters, and the Red Bull high divers do 27. That's just even just a little bit off, you're gonna get knocked out. So that's a madhouse right there. What happens in the Red Bull high diving? But that's the excitement. That's why we all love it. It's
Absolutely, man. And what's the highest you've ever jumped from?
me. I think 21 was for me the highest one. For
And was that,
surf,
and
good,
was,
good.
is that like about like 60 feet? I would say.
Yeah, I think it's 60 feet, somewhere around there. Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't a high diver
Well,
before. So, as I mentioned, even 10-meter for me was challenging. I was only 16 years old the first time when you're a diver, you're already off the 10-meter at age 10, 11, 12. You find to do a straight jump. But I never done that. I missed that whole scene. So at 16, the first time in 10-meter, I was like, this is no way. Like, how? What the heck? No way I'm doing this.
yo, that's a
You
lot
go
to
off the
finish.
first time, and then eventually you go, and you start enjoying, and you start missing it. And it becomes a thrill, becomes a little bit of a drug, adrenaline rush for
Yeah.
you. So you do that, and then when I moved to Cirque du Soleil, it doubled the height. From 10, I went to 20 right away, and that was a huge step. That was probably a bigger step for me than from 0 to 10. I took it a lot harder, and I actually crashed on the first dive, and I couldn't move my arms for a couple of days, but that was about it. Luckily, I didn't get hurt seriously.
Thank God.
Uh, but it was a good lesson. I took my time after. I built it up slowly, and then later on, I was able to do it for about, I don't know, maybe 8 years or so every night.
All right, that's dope. So, like, talking about after the Olympics, right? Because I know you did perform for Cirque du Soleil and whatnot, and you also went to go get your degree. So,
Mhm.
like, after competition, after that career is over, like, how did you find yourself, or how did you find like what you wanted to do next?
Well, that's a very crucial moment that you just pinpointed right there in a career, in a sport career. Not only me, I would say almost every single person that I know goes through the same. It's a dip in your life. It's a
Yeah,
huge dip. Most of the time you're going through 20, 30 years of ding ding banging out, sport, and then entertainment and high risk stuff. And then all of a sudden you wake up on a Monday morning and it's done. It's over. Your contract finished. They don't want to resign you, or you don't want to renew, or your body can't take it anymore. You're at the end of your career. Welcome to real life kind of moment.
yeah,
So you see a lot of people going the wrong way about it. They're not prepared, especially a lot of, people that come from Eastern Europe. They settle in Las Vegas. They have a somewhat secured, safe, okay job, and
yeah,
they end up being stuck there for 20, 30 years. And then when it ends, it's a big confusion and not knowing what to do. There's only so much options within the industry. You can become a technical person, a rigger, a coach, but a lot less positions than performing itself. So
yeah.
so it's usually a challenge for people. Some companies help out, to be honest. They have different kind of programs that help the transition into regular life, not performing life. So you see all kind of different versions how people take this challenge. For me, what I did, I went to South America for 6 months and turned my phone off. That's how I dealt with that challenge, pretty much. And after about 6 months, I came back to the States and decided I'll not do entertainment anymore because it was such a rough run, in a good way as well.
Yeah.
I was like, this is for a young person. This is for someone that want to go crazy in Las Vegas. Then do
I got
it.
you on
Hang
that.
out there for a few years, enjoy yourself, see things, do things that you probably will never see or do anywhere else than in this industry and these companies. So I went through that, and eventually, I wouldn't say I burned out of it, but I didn't have the slightest interest to perform. I found it not very fulfilling, after a
I got
while.
you.
But I was still kind of in love with the industry because the atmosphere is very nice. So So I ventured into the coaching side of it, and I ended up getting a job in China, uh,
Oh,
in a very, very nice production, which gave me so much understanding and knowledge about the managing side of this business, and that's where I kind of learned the first big skills that I have.
yeah.
And then after I joined Cirque du Soleil and stayed with them for several years, did different coaching jobs and did resident shows, touring shows. I was a little bit of a specialist. Someone called me once for high risk things that they put me in projects that some other coaches wouldn't really want to take because of the risk that it involves, and specifically swing to swing was one of them. It's like two apparatus. You jump from one thing to the other. Such a small, there's no room for error and quite a few accidents throughout the year. So,
Of
so
course.
it's a heavy job to manage. It's a heavy act to run, and yeah, some people don't want to do it. And I'm a Hungarian Olympian. What am I going to do? Back down
He
from
gonna
challenge.
take. He gonna
I
take.
raise
He
my
gonna
hand.
take the
Oh,
challenge.
let me do that. Let me try it at least. If I don't know if I can do it, but what can be worse than not trying it? So
That's what
usually
makes.
things work out all right. So that's what happened for a couple of years, and then eventually I got a little bit tired of that, and my company hit a wall. They went bankrupt, and
Yeah.
so they had some serious issues for a couple of years, and they're still in a recovery phase. It feels like, but they will come back for sure, and they will stand up, and they will shine brighter than ever. I know, but
Nah,
uh,
I hope so too because I remember
entertain.
going to go see Cirque du Soleil when they were in New York,
Hmm.
and it was an amazing show. It was
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. It
yeah,
was
they're
mind
spectacular.
blowing. It
They
is like
they
no,
changed the entertainment landscape for sure. That's what happened. They came in and they presented something from day one that was never seen before, and it's just mesmerizing and blew everybody's mind. But 20, 25 years later, the world changed, concepts changed, and so so they're struggling a little bit with what to do or how to go about their business. And it's a transformation. That's the way I like to think about it. That
yeah.
these turbulent years are making the company better and stronger, and eventually they're going to come out of it in a way that they can present something again that's just going to blow everybody's mind.
No, I truly believe that because Cirque du Soleil kind of like put this, I would say, gold standard now when it comes to like things of that nature, especially when it comes to entertainment that it requires like these super elite athletes like just doing the wildest, excuse my language, just doing the wildest shit that like somebody like of me will be like, nah, I would die trying that. But it's amazing to see like how the human body could work and how people push that shit, push it to the limit and make these spectacular things that people could just only dream of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a creative company. That's what they do. I have a story about this
Let me know what's up.
creativity. My creativity story with Cirque du Soleil was, at one point I was a performer in Las Vegas, and there was maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 shows, productions on the Las Vegas Strip, Cirque du Soleil productions.
Yeah,
All of them are 1,800 seats, 2,000 seats, 100 cast members. So you're talking about large scale productions. Ding, ding, ding. They're running every night. And then other reasons, economical reasons, ticket sales were kind of going down, not just for Cirque, for everybody. The whole
yeah,
city was in a little bit of a hole, a rut. So one of the meetings, somebody asked, one of the performers asked, like, why are we making more shows? Why are we creating new shows when we can't even support our existing shows? We can't even sell those. Why come up with new stuff? And the answer was very, very simple. Right away, it came from somebody saying that because it's a creative company. You understand the word creative? If you stop creating, then you're done. You don't have a purpose anymore. So you have to
true.
come up with stuff, new stuff. And it's extremely challenging. Coming out with shows, 1 or 2 shows, big productions every year for the past 20 years, you know, sit down at the table and come up with something new. How? We've done everything. I mean, not
That's the
we,
truth.
they've done everything. So, challenges are there.
No, I believe that because Circus Soleil keeps pushing that limit, bro. And it's like they have very talented people that work for them, and they are a creative company. So it's like I would see like Cirque du Soleil never really like settling for just all right, we have this show and it's doing great. Let's just keep it as is. You know what I mean? I can
Mhm.
always see that company pushing it forward, and I also think that's the allure of Cirque du Soleil as well. You know what I mean? Like people,
Mhm.
if people wanted to see the mundane or the regular shit, they would go to like a regular circus or like another show. But Circus Soleil, everybody holds that company at such a high standard. It's like if we're gonna go to Circus Soleil, we know we're in for like this amazing time, and our minds are gonna be blown out the fucking water.
Yes, yes. That's absolutely a strong point that you're saying that they made such a name for themselves. The first 15 years or 20 years were such unique and successful run,
Yeah,
entertainment wise, business wise, everything wise, pretty much. There's just such a blue ocean, they call it, right?
yeah,
So, yeah, they made such a strong name. It became a household name, pretty
yep,
much, around the world. So it's fine. That's the way. I'm not too worried because even years that are might be like this,
yeah,
closing shows and stuff like that. It's okay. It's such a strong Canadian heritage that
yeah.
it will never go down.
I got you. And just pulling back from the company itself, you said that you were working at like as a high risk coach, correct?
Well, high risk acts I was dealing with mostly,
Ooh, okay,
pretty
okay.
much. That yeah,
So like
yeah.
what kind of what were you like? I know you were doing the swings, but like
Mhm.
what kind of like acts were you like? Were you like creating the acts, or were you were just performing in them? What was like
Well, it
your
depending on the project, what project you're on. I did both for Cirque. I did creation, they call it. That's
okay?
when the show is being put together, and I wasn't part of the concept, but I was part of the creation phase of it. So as soon as we went into the studio and started putting the show together, it takes about, I think it was 9 months or so
Yeah,
in Montreal. That's where the company's headquarters are. So 9 months creation in Montreal, and then a show starts touring. I did one of those, and I also joined the touring show that was already touring. So I wasn't part of the creation. The head coach left, I think, so they called me in there, and then I toured on that particular show, and I was the head coach of the show, which required to take care of. I think we had 7 or 8 acts, something
yeah,
like that. It's about 50 performers, pretty much, and you take care of everything that goes on stage. You have an artistic director. Usually, she's or he's not an acrobatic person, but Cirque du Soleil is an acrobatic
yeah,
uh, company. If you take the acrobatic out of it, it becomes mm, nothing really.
yeah,
So that's the core of it all. That's why people want to see. That's what people want to see. That's why they go to circus shows, to see crazy human performance, flips and twists and height and burning, and so it's theatrical, but at the same time it's human performance.
yeah.
So
And what side of it did you prefer, like the creation or the touring? Like what were you really drawn to? Like
Mhm. Well, I did that creation that wasn't particularly very nice to me. That was my first big creation. So I was personally struggling with the whole process. That's
yeah,
without saying how the project went, but it wasn't an easy one for sure. Everybody knows that. But for me personally, was on top of that even harder because I never seen anything like this. So I was a little bit lost in the whole process, to be honest. But again, by the time I got there, I had a couple of good friends and I had a good network within the company that I trusted very well, and they were always open. I was able to meet them, give them a call anytime I needed, and they were very supportive. And I kept that habit of mine that I kept a small circle within the company. I'm not a very company
yeah.
person. It's
I got
just work for me. But I picked a few people that I knew that I can trust, and they know what they're talking about because they already proved themselves throughout the years. So you build up a community for yourself that supports you when you need it.
I got you on that, man. So like what was like what did you have any like crazy moments either during your creation or on tour that you were just like, whoa, like this is like I helped put together that something that is just out of this world. Like, do you have any like proud moments or like wild moments that you were just like, whoa, like this is crazy?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I have all kinds of moments. I spent over a decade in this environment, so I went through all kinds of phases and feelings and moments there. Good moments are, let's say, opening nights are fantastic. Every time you go to a different city, there's a big party, there's a band playing, there's, thousands of people. You're on the news, there's morning show appearances, and so you make a little bit of a buzz in the city. And it's true. That's what the circus does. When you come to town, people wake up. It's a little bit of celebration and fun.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Come on out there, hang out with us. Look what we do. You know, type
I
of
feel you,
thing.
man.
So it's good atmosphere for sure. So so on a good day you get a lot of that at work. The people are happy. It's a fantastic community, such a close, family knit uh,
Yeah,
environment. You live with these people, you work with these people, you date these people, you sleep with these people. Everything goes. It's your life pretty much. It takes over your life. And I lived in Las Vegas for, maybe on the first run, maybe 10 years. I would say 80% of my friends, 90% of my friends, or people I knew there, were in the industry.
yeah,
Dancers, performers, managers, directors. You don't really meet people outside because you're just so busy dealing with your environment. It's buzzing, constantly buzzing, very colorful, that's for sure. And again, it gets to you as well sometimes, especially introverted person, they get overloaded with everything that happens in this environment. So as a coach, that's also part of a job to manage everybody in a way that they fall nicely on the walking path, and nobody falls to the right or to the left. And
yeah. I
yeah.
get you on that, man. So, do you have any like any cool stories from like when you were traveling with Cirque du Soleil that really stand out to you that you want to share with us?
Cool stories traveling with Cirque du Soleil. Well, Mexico, it's not really one story. We spent 4 months in Mexico with a Mexican themed
No,
production. So
nice.
obviously we got so much recognition for it, and people were standing outside the tent and made homemade products about our production, about our show, and started selling it. Became an issue eventually because they started selling,
Yeah,
Cirque du Soleil stuff that was not Cirque du Soleil stuff. So but there are so many stories, to be honest. I don't think I can pick one out. Touring is fantastic. One thing, even though I wasn't touring on arena tour. Arena tours go weekly, so you
yeah,
spend a week in a city. That's a lot of traveling. That's a lot of sitting on a bus, and you definitely wake up in the morning. You don't know where you are. You don't know what city you're in. You have to think or look to actually remember because it just changes.
yeah.
So much. I didn't do that. I was on tour. We stopped about 2-3 months in a city. Uh, yeah, but there are a tremendous amount of stories. To be honest, it just happens every day. But generally speaking, I would say these are normal people as well. So
No,
they
I
live their
get you.
life. Everybody's fun loving, so joking around. And when it's time to get serious and go on stage, then people change a little bit.
I feel you on that. And would you say that comparing your days as an Olympian and as an athlete versus your days working with Circus Soleil, would you say the pressure is more in the when as you were an Olympian, or making sure that the shows at Circus Soleil were going correctly and nobody got hurt?
Hmm. Well, I would say the pressure is higher at the Olympic sport
Okay,
atmosphere, more than the entertainment world. There is pressure in the entertainment world, but different type of pressure, to be honest.
okay,
Workload would be one of those things. As I mentioned, have to be able to go through weeks and months and years without really stopping. So one key trick to that is in elite sports, when you're competing, you're going for 100%. right? You always want to do your best.
Yeah,
When you're running, you're never really running like, okay, I'm just gonna end up fourth today. That's fine. That doesn't happen. You want to win. So you're going full out, full out. You're trying your best. In entertainment, you don't necessarily have to do your best every night. You know, you can put yourself at an 80% that you can cruise through weeks and months and years. You know, sometimes you gotta go back to 70 because you're forced with a little injury or tired or mental breakdown or something. You know, somebody passed away in your family. You're having a rough week in your personal life, but you still come to work. You still gotta go out. You still gotta put on the biggest smile. So there are challenges to it for sure. Uh, hard to compare. Pressure wise, I would say the Olympics are more pressure because that's serious business,
yeah,
you know. Entertainment is, even though it's extremely serious, the front side of it is not serious. Ta-da! That's what it is. It's fun. It's not
yeah.
serious. It's jokes, you know.
That's true.
So,
I get
so in that sense, it's okay. If you mess up in entertainment, let's say you don't get hurt, that's the only thing. If you're a juggler and you drop the balls, what's going to happen? Nothing. You're going to try it again. They're going to clap more, right? If you're a diver, you mess up a dive, you land on your belly, what's going to happen? You end up 16th. You don't make it anywhere. So in that sense, yes, pressure is more in a competition than in entertainment.
I get you on that. I get you on that. So like, what what advice would you personally give somebody who's kind of like leaving the sports world and kind of like coming into the real world? Like, what advice would you give that person?
Coming into the real world
Yeah,
or going
like
entertainment?
going like transitioning out of like competition and like athletic sports and coming into like realization that that part of their life is over and
Yes.
now they have to kind of like find another lane for themselves.
Yes, yes. There are so many things that you acquire as an athlete. You don't
Yeah,
even have to be a professional athlete, to be honest. Just an athlete for a few years, the consistency of it, the regularity that you wake up early in the morning. That's one thing, that's consistency. That's builds character. That changes you as a person. Your behavior will be different. You're going to be productive. You're going to grow. You're going to be different. You're going to eventually get to the point when you're going to be so big and so strong that you're going to have enough capacity to give out more to other people and make the same with other people, grow, make them grow, and give them stuff that they don't have. So that's one thing, that you're a very, if you're an athlete, you're a very powerful individual. Harness it the right way. Use the tools that you picked up throughout your career, like consistency, is probably the most important that you can learn as an athlete, because no athlete becomes overnight. You know,
nice.
every athlete that wins a medal works for it on a long run. At least a few months you put in, to do something, to win something. So that's one thing. Use those skills and value those skills, because not everybody has those in the popular generation. Those are assets that you have something that's rare, that's coming from suffering, sport, and disappointments and losses and all those things, that character trait that builds up in you. That's
Yeah,
what it is. That's strength, pretty much, I would say. So believe that strength, use that strength, carry that strength, and build on it.
I got you on that. And how important is it to have like a support system that
Extremely.
that has like your back and like even when like you're transitioning in life that they're there for you to like not carry you but like sort of like push you in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's essential. Without it, most likely you're gonna get lost here and there, and you're gonna go down on one knee. And if nobody helps you out, at times everybody needs help. We're social people. We don't achieve things alone. We don't get from A to B by ourselves. Everybody has a part in it. So usually success and winnings and world records are a collective result, a group of people that put something into it, and that's the end of it. The athlete carries that gold medal for sure, but I have many friends in the coaching community, in the diving coaching community. I went more into entertainment. They ended up in the diving, the competitive side of it, but fantastic personalities. I mean, they are my idols, to be honest. Some
Yeah.
of the coaches from Australia and the Netherlands, and the way they treat people and the way they approach people is just so genuine, so 100% supportive, and so that's the kind of coaching that I'm aiming to give people when I do my uh, trade.
Nah, I got you, man. And just sitting down and having this conversation with you, I could already tell that whoever you train and whoever your students are, they're going to be in very capable hands. Just by your presence and your energy and your experience, you could tell that whoever studies under you is going to have one of the best people behind them.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very
I
nice to hear.
got you, bro. I got you. I
Appreciate
gotta
it.
give the I gotta give the flowers when they do. And I'm
Oh,
giving
that's
you.
great. Thank you so much.
And before we get out of here, right? There's a question I ask all my guests. Um, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or advice for the roomies?
For the
Do you have any final thoughts, advice, or words of wisdom?
words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom, yes.
Well, lately it's a big thing in my life. Silence.
Okay.
Crazy concept, but I've been venturing into silence and discovering the benefits of being silent, listening to silence, and as I get older a little bit throughout the years, I've been in such buzzing environment. Everything was loud and happening and like fireworks. My whole life is, a round of fireworks pretty much. So lately I ventured into the opposite direction, the silence and the quiet and meditation and I think reflection, self-reflection probably. If anything, that's probably one advice that I would give: self-reflect on yourself and have a relationship with yourself when you clearly see what's going on, what do you want, what do you need, and self-related things. Take care of yourself.
I got you, man. All right, roomies, you heard it here first. And remember, if you have a goal in mind, a dream, anything that you want to do, put your head into it. Keep doing what you got to do. Be disciplined because you can achieve it. And with that, peace out.